This thing that I believe about sevens, when you watch them and observe them, is that they're genuinely enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
With activity and stimulation. Yeah. That's the difference.
Yeah.
I would enjoy myself the most with lack of activity, lack of stimulation, or a different kind of stimulation. Like I'm stimulated through a song or a book or a thought. And it's not like sevens aren't because they're in the head triad. But
this is the most 5 thing. I just want to be listening and analyzing a song or reading a book by myself.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 5th episode of No Small Thing. I'm Scott.
And I'm Macy.
And this week we are coming to you from Whidbey Island.
Live from Whidbey Island. It is a Friday night. Normally we record on a Thursday. We are just sitting, looking out at the wetlands.
The wetlands.
Is that what
Protected wetlands.
Yeah.
And it's pretty. We've had a nice day.
Threw a lot of rocks into the water.
Yep. And tonight we are talking about something that we are very, very excited about, and something that
means a lot to us.
It means a lot to us, and it is the Enneagram.
We've been hinting at this one.
Pretend you were like walking down the street and you were with some friends and you were talking about the Enneagram, and somebody said, "Oh, what is that? What is the Enneagram? What are you guys talking about?"
I would say that the Enneagram it's similar to a personality type, but it's more of like I don't know. It's very complex. I would try and over-explain it, but
is it a personality test? That's what I think. I think people want to know that. Is this a personality test?
I don't think it is.
Okay.
I think it gives these personality profiles almost. And the Enneagram is very complex in its depth, I would say. So it's not just like Myers-Briggs is a common personality test, and that feels there are complex layers to that, but it feels a little bit less fluid between the different personality types. But the Enneagram it gives 9 archetypes, maybe. Yeah,
you're saying this perfectly.
I don't know about perfectly, but
I think it's great.
9 archetypes.
Better than I would have said it.
It's supposedly ancient wisdom, this design of these 9 personality archetypes, but I don't know. They're just helpful language and tools in which we can like understand ways in which people like see the world, I would say. It like gives the different like perspectives of 9 archetypes.
And different ways for us to see people. And not just the world, but like to see people through a different lens.
Yeah, because the Enneagram kind of focuses on this like ego or this drive that people have that that forces them to respond or react to every situation that they encounter in a certain way almost. And understanding that about yourself and understanding that about others, I don't know. I think that's what the Enneagram's all about.
I don't know if anybody that's a professional in the Enneagram or understands the Enneagram extremely well. Like we're not licensed anything.
Oh no.
So
and
we're not professional Enneagram people. None of us had written a book on the Enneagram. We are just kind of fans.
Big fans. Well, that's the thing is I didn't realize this, but like there are so many Enneagram experts in the world.
Enneagram experts, Enneagram books, Enneagram resources.
Like Enneagram, like just like kind of therapists almost, or like leading conferences and different things. I don't know. It's hit the Christian world. So that's probably why we first of all heard of it.
I think what I like about the Enneagram compared to maybe what we'd call classic personality tests, I don't even know what falls under that category, but side note, I guess if anybody has had a really good experience with a personality test, let us know what it is. I know there's a lot out there. I know about Myers-Briggs and Strength Finders, maybe a few others. But what I like about the Enneagram, and you said it yourself, it's not necessarily a personality test. You called it archetypes, which I liked. Mm-hmm. But I think compared to these other column personality tests, it is the most maybe nimble or agile or flexible, and that you can spend a lifetime kind of going deeper and deeper and deeper. It's not just like, here's who you are, it's static. I think a lot of people would hesitate too to say like the Enneagram isn't rooted in like science, I don't think, although psychologists seem to like it.
Yeah, I think some like it. I bet there's some who don't.
Yeah.
But The Enneagram, like, kind of, if you really start to study it or learn about yourself, you learn ways in which you can, like, integrate, in ways in which you can, like, kind of tap into, like, your own, like, realize your ego and then be able to, like, see it and then move beyond it. I don't know. It's helping me to, like, push myself to see the world differently based on understanding my own number and then also understanding, like, other people's numbers. I don't know.
You keep saying the world different, but I feel like you mean people.
I don't mean just
you
people.
Mean the world.
I mean
what
the
do you mean
world.
by that?
Like, I think when I look out and see, if I go out on a deck, I look out, I'm going to experience it kind of in one way as a 4, as opposed to maybe a 7 would. So, like, they're seeing the world different. Like, so a 7 might look out and be like, oh, man, I could go run through that, and I could, like, jump in the water and do all these things
birds.
and, like, just get
go
super
hunting.
pumped about it and, like, can see all the possibilities. As we're, like, I look at it and, like, I'm like, what is the meaning of all of this? And, like, I need to know, but I also want to, like, feel it all. And, like, I feel like a myriad of emotions. And while I'm looking at it, I'm like, I feel like lost in the moment, but also like I'm already looking back on it. And that's, I feel like, the way a 4 would look at it. So I feel like they see and experience the world differently. And I almost feel like they experience, like, I don't know, whatever the divine other is. No, the numbers.
Oh, all the numbers have
like their
a way
own.
they experience divinity.
Yeah, I think so, on some level.
Okay. I've heard somebody say, it might have been you, it might have been an expert, that empathy comes out of your experience with the Enneagram. Like, it cultivates empathy for people.
It was the Sleeping Out Last podcast where his name's, I think, Chris Hewart.
Right? Oh, Chris, yeah.
He wrote The Sacred Enneagram. I haven't read the book, but I've heard a lot of parts of it, and it seems amazing, so I would suggest it. Sleeping on Last podcast, he talks about it in a way of, like, viewing the Enneagram, like, as a tool for empathy. So, like, it helps us to, like, see and, like, understand the other. So, like, if I can see and understand the way in which you perceived the most recent, I don't know, action that just happened, like, I know what's going on and I can understand, like, what you may need.
So this is not going to be an episode where we, like, explain thoroughly the Enneagram. And we want to say that if you're interested in anything that we've just said and you don't know what the Enneagram is, you can go to the Enneagram Institute website. And there's all sorts of things online that you can go research and look up. And I'd encourage you to do it because it would be highly worth your time. But this is going to be a different type of episode. So we're gonna like, there's 9 numbers, and we're going to sort of skim over them and do a brief explanation of each number. And I'm also really interested to address certain reservations people have expressed to me personally about Enneagram and personality types in general.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about the number 5 specifically, which I identify as a 5. And,
Number 5.
Number 5. And 9 numbers, I identify as a 5. And our hope is this would be one of many Enneagram episodes where we deep dive a specific number.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, I'm a 4, so we'll probably want to talk about that. And, we'll have our friends on who are the numbers, I think. 5 is especially fun for me because I live with a 5, too. So this is a number that I, like, love. It's
our
a
friend
fun
Reuven
number.
is a housemate of Macy. We've mentioned him in past episodes, and we hope he's on the podcast someday.
Yeah, one day. He is a very fun 5. So
very complicated 5.
All 5s are very complicated.
Yeah.
I think they're the most complicated number.
Yeah. One of the things I want to talk about is that this doesn't even necessarily have to be about the Enneagram, but let's make it Enneagram specific. But there are a lot of people who push back pretty hard on the whole notion of a personality test.
Yeah.
And I've listened a lot to those voices. and I still don't understand where they're coming from.
You're trying so
I
hard.
understand the words that are coming out of their mouth.
They're complete sentences.
They're complete sentences, but I just can't wrap my head around the fear or the suspicion or the judgment of the whole exercise. So I want to try to address some of those things. I guess, first of all, have you experienced people that are skeptical of this?
Yeah. I mean,
what do they say? What are some of the complaints?
I think that more than anything, people will just say like, well, the first complaint is like you can't put a person in a box.
Yeah,
like,
that is the number
one complaint
we love
is like
talking about
you
box.
can't put a person in a box, and like I'm like, it's not putting you in a box. Like it's an archetype. It's just an idea. That's probably the number one. But then also I think people question its like validity.
This isn't science.
But yeah, it's not science. It's like kind of, I mean, it's almost some form of like, why you like, I don't know. It's like, the Enneagram's like kind of spiritual too.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so I think it's kind of, some people may just be like, oh, it's some weird spiritual
Even
stuff.
the name Enneagram seems, I think some people have instantly, because of even the design, if you look up online, like the design of the Enneagram, it's got 9 points. It looks a little spooky if you're that type of person. I have a few responses to this whole box.
Yeah.
Put
Oh
me in a
yeah, I do
box.
too.
Okay, so I'll give.
I just have one, so you do yours.
Are you
first.
sure? Are you sure? Me go 1st?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One response I have is, all that we have. I think this is true. All that we have to express ourselves is language. I mean, I guess we have noises and facial expressions, but to a certain extent, we make sense of our world through language.
Yeah.
And there is a Radiolab episode on color that we'll probably reference someday in some sort of episode on color. But there's this it seems like neuroscience that talks about this idea of like naming a new color. Just naming it helps you see it.
Yes. Yes.
So when we give language to different types of personalities, it helps us see people in a brand new way, including ourselves. So it's just language. So my box thing is this idea of like, if you go to get a hamburger with a friend, and you get a hamburger and you eat it and you're enjoying it, and somebody says, "Oh, you like hamburgers," and the person says, "Don't put me in a box. Don't label me as a person that likes hamburgers." You know, that's what it is. It's just not. What do you mean, put you in a box? Just to say that you like hamburgers? We have ways of I guess boxing each other in all day. Basically, really laughing. Like, it's not. I'm just trying to get a sense of who you are. Like, if I were to say, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? You know, what music do you like? It's like, oh, don't box me in. It's like, I'm not trying to box you in. I'm just trying to understand you. And okay, so say you were a person that said, I like 21 Pilots. If you don't like 21 Pilots in a year, that's fine. You can change. I'm not going to be like, oh, no. You get back in your box.
You have like, so many thoughts on this.
I get so agitated when people talk about their suspicions about this. It's just, they're missing out on like kind of a fun party. You know, it's like, it's no big deal.
Yeah, they just need to be more carefree about it,
yeah.
I think, almost.
And I'll say one more thing. And then please share your thought. But this is just riding the roller coaster of my brain right now. But,
let's go.
I think, or I suspect, that people that are not wanting to be boxed in are actually so they would say, don't box me in the name of I'm bigger than these labels. However, I think those types of people are running from themselves. They're scared of naming good and bad things about themselves. And so they're I don't know. I don't want to sound mean, and I might even edit that out. I don't know. It's a slight call out. It's a slight call out to anybody that's suspicious of personality tests.
I think that there's almost like a what is there to fear in it? Like, I don't know why people make a fuss about it, because it's like, okay, well, you know, I'm just trying this thing, you know? I'm trying to be a better person, trying to like use all the tools we got, you know? And I don't know why people got to be haters. Haters gonna hate.
People have some weird fantasies about how personality tests are going to be misused
Yeah.
to like box people in or
Oh, no.
write people off. I've never seen it. I believe it could happen.
I guess,
But in my
yeah.
experience with personality tests, I have never even seen like an immature, reckless person misuse the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs in the way that people fear they might be misused.
Interesting.
I've just never seen it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it happens, and I'm sure it could happen, but I've never seen it.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't either.
So there's that.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, this was just a really helpful way for me to think about the Enneagram that gave me a little bit more ease about the idea of being boxed in, because I had that similar reaction, I would say, like at first. Makes sense. And once someone gave this idea of, each number is kind of its own color, and within that color, there's all these different hues and shades and lights. And so every person is their own kind of unique point on that color, like hue. But there's this kind of commonality and the similarity, and there's baseness that we may have, or at least share with each other. And kind of just being able to experience those other, perspectives and see how other people's base colors, but also recognize that you have your own personal way of experiencing the world and people. Man, the Enneagram I get so sentimental about it.
Sentimental. I like it. Oh, do we have any other things that we'd want to say about haters or doubters or non-believers?
No, I don't think
Any other
so.
reservations you hear aside from boxed in?
Oh, I think this is, also my own. This is my own. I question it a lot.
Ooh, okay. Here you go.
I think
Doubters, you
that-
have a partner.
I think that I question it a lot in the sense of like, similarly to how I question just a lot of systems that we use in today's world. Like, this is just a system. This is just like a means of communicating. Like, it doesn't hold, I don't think, this like insane eternal truthness. I think I
Right.
used to always look and search for eternal truthness, and now I just can kind of see something for its practicality and its wisdom and its thoughtfulness, because there's a lot of people who have put a lot of thought into it and who write a lot of really helpful, interesting books about it that help us understand people, and that's real, even if the system is these 9 maybe.
The Enneagram wasn't handed down on 2 stone tablets
No,
from some deity.
but
It's a human creation.
yeah, it is. But supposedly it's been around for a long time. There's like this pentagram.
Everybody always says it's an ancient tool.
Yeah,
and I
and
don't
like
quite know what they
every
mean by that. Look it
foreword
up.
of every book, it kind of talks about that, and it has a lot of roots. And like, I think it was actually it originated in Sufi religion.
Okay, that sounds right to me based on.
But at this point, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
you've heard
now
so many
kind of
things.
new agey,
read too
and
many
Christians have adopted it.
Okay. And the thing, I'll say one more thing too about like skepticism or haters or doubters is, as a 5 observer / investigator, I'm supposedly supposed to be a lot more suspicious of something like this.
Yeah, supposedly 5s don't like the Enneagram.
And I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and you
I'm
and
great. I think it's great.
Jack and Ruben.
Yeah.
All
fine.
the 5s in my life like
Ruben
it. He was a hater at
skeptical.
first.
Yeah,
He was a hater
so
at first,
it
but
takes
now.
a lot. It takes a while. Let me ask you one final question. Is
Okay.
like, just what was your experience like just this last week, going a little deeper with the Enneagram? Because you definitely had an experience. How would you describe that?
Oh, I think I saw myself in new ways, but I, more than anything, so I've done a lot of work to understand my number as a number 4, which, I don't know, the individualist, the romantic, the tragic romantic, that's its kind of names. And more than anything, this week I was trying to understand other numbers better. And in doing that was also just really trying to understand the people around me's numbers. And I was looking at my own number in relation to others. And it just helped me to like understand how much we react on instinct and how much like growing I have to do, but also like how capable I am of that growing and like understanding other people. Like, I think that's something that I really want to push into and lean into, is just like yeah, I want to be more empathetic to other people in a way that's serving to them, but also like good for me. So it's been good. It's also helped me to like understand what I need as a person and how I like can best thrive. Yeah, it's been good, man. I love
my
it.
response is like, I'm trying to like give a pitch for the Enneagram.
Sorry. Was that supposed to be a pitch?
No. I'm trying to go. What you said was perfect. I'm just trying to think of like the different types of people that might be listening. Maybe there's people that understand the Enneagram and who knows what they get out of this episode. And then there's people that are like skating on the surface of it. That it was like me that has heard about it. I had some sort of familiarity with the numbers, but I had never actually done the work. And there's maybe people that have no idea what we're talking about. And I guess I'm just trying to say, like, here's another thing about the Enneagram in terms of my experience. I've had experiences where I've sat and read the description of somebody I know and love, and when I read that description with that person in mind, it's very emotional.
Yeah.
Which is just what here's one way I'll describe why it's emotional, and it's to say it's putting words around this person's core truth almost. And you see it so clearly.
Yeah.
And it's really sweet. There's a sadness to it too, but
yeah, the Enneagram kind of gets crap because it's sad almost. It often like kind of is it kind of shows your dark side. I mean, it reveals in one level your ego. That's like part of it. And typically the number that you respond most strongly to is the one that is your number, and it's usually the one that kind of you feel is the most like gut wrenching. So I think that might be another reason why some people...
It causes you to get the most defensive?
Yeah, I think that might be a reason why some people may not gravitate towards it, because it can seem a little bit negative. And I think I was a little bit like nervous about it in that sense. But I think it has been another pitch. This would be a pitch actually, is if you're looking for a tool for self like introspection, this is just one of them. There's like so many out there, but this is like a way in which you can at least be asking yourself certain questions about why you're doing what you're doing or why you respond the way you respond. So it's just another tool in your tool belt of self-introspection, which I think is a huge aspect of what makes us whole, healthy human beings.
That's good.
I don't know.
A tool. It's a tool. Just use it however you want.
I just feel like...
Well, not however you want, but...
I don't know. We're
just
just trying to like do the best we can each and every day, and sometimes we do it. Sometimes we're trying.
Oh my gosh.
I think that we've gotten to this point. I would hope that we kind of like have almost studied this on some level and like put it into practice also on some level. So while I definitely don't think we come at this as experts, we come at it as like, like, hey, we're trying this, and like maybe we'll share some ways it's been helpful and encourage. I think it's worth diving into. So like I hope that this is encouragement, to be honest.
Yeah, encouragement to start a journey.
Yeah.
Or if you've already started, maybe to dive a little deeper.
Yeah.
Or if you're a hater, stop being a hater.
Yeah. Or I mean, if you want to hate, that's fine. That's fine.
That's fine. Go ahead and hate.
The thing is,
we're going to be over here enjoying the Enneagram.
I know, but I don't want it to be. I also don't want it to come across or seem like I can still interact with people when I don't know their numbers. Like, like, and so you don't have to, the whole world doesn't have to convert to the Enneagram, but, I don't know if you're looking for a tool to help you.
But just know that we're all numbering you and boxing you in.
Okay. Are we going to talk about the 5?
So here's the thing is, I'll basically hand it over to Macy to a certain extent, but our hope is that over a certain amount of time, maybe a year, we'll have an opportunity to deep dive each number.
Yeah.
So I'm a 5, Macy is a 4. We have, I think, friends in every category. And it would be great to have an opportunity to host them on the podcast and figure out what it's like for them to be that number.
Yeah.
So that's just another example of like not boxing. Yeah. We want to hear from each person individually what it's like for them to be that number.
in the
That's the color thing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. It's your podcast.
The Enneagram has also it gives us like a tools and a means for us to like ask the people we're close with like kind of questions that we maybe wouldn't have had a language in which to ask it before.
Yes.
Like I was camping this last weekend with my friends and was like really trying to understand. Like I had all my friends like take the test, I encouraged them and they wanted to. And some of them had already like thought they knew what their numbers were, but now that I have a deeper understanding, it helped me to I was talking to my friends and she was trying to decide if she was a 2, 6, or a 9. And we were going through all of it and I was just talking with her. And I feel like even just us having that conversation, like I understand her better. And I at least understand the way she sees the world and just the way we were talking through things because it's so different than me. And it's so easy for us to assume that everybody approaches the world with a similar attitude as us, but we all approach it so differently. And this gives us a tool and a way in which we can maybe start to see that and start to see outside ourselves and start to see ourselves.
So well said.
Final thought.
Final thought.
We'll have 17 more probably.
Oh my gosh.
Let's get to the 5.
All right. So this week we're going to focus on 5, which is awkward because I guess that's me. But
yeah, no. Why is it awkward?
Actually.
It's super awkward.
I don't know.
5s are super fun.
I'm going to be excited to turn the. Well, maybe that's a 5 mentality. Is I like to listen and observe other people, not myself. But I guess maybe I'll let you maybe ask questions or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I've got questions.
Okay.
But okay.
So I identify as a 5.
As
a 5, which is the observer/investigator.
When did you first know, or at least, so you talked about I didn't know that you thought you were a 4, I don't think. Which is interesting because we were probably learning about this at the same time. Shows how much I listened. But when did you realize that you were a 5?
I said earlier that I don't necessarily recommend taking a test.
Yeah.
But the test did help me. So I guess if you're I'm not saying this as a diss because I'm saying it about myself. If you're a person that's sort of by nature a little slightly lazy, go ahead and take a test because that will spark the journey. Mm-hmm. So I think I was slightly lazy in the initial phases. I think if I had been coached and given the time, I would have read this book. Basically, the Enneagram Bible is something called the Wisdom of the Enneagram.
Yeah, it's really
and
good.
we have that here on our table, and there's lots of Enneagram books. But I think the best way to do it would probably have been to explore each number on my own and self-identify.
Yeah, that's what they say you're supposed to do. But
the test helped point me towards 5. And when I read about 5, it totally resonated.
Yeah.
And what people say is the number that causes you to be sort of the most defensive is probably your number. And that's definitely 5 for me too. Macy and I are different in the sense that I don't resonate with a lot of numbers. Macy seems to resonate with lots of different numbers. I don't resonate with 2. I definitely don't resonate with 3. Definitely don't resonate with 6 or 7. I can sometimes get in the headspace of an 8, a 9, a 1, and a 4.
Where do you go in stress 7?
7.
But so can you understand that headspace very much?
7?
Yeah. Well, I feel like you were raised to be a 7.
I was raised to be a 7. That's a big conversation.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to get into that.
The 7 is called the enthusiast, and so this is what you learn about your different numbers is in theory, you go to a certain number in stress. So this is the thing I would recommend to people, in terms of it not being science.
Yeah.
See if it fits or it resonates. If it doesn't, no big deal. But that does resonate almost in a tragic sense with me. Okay, so let's just say this about myself. So this is not only obviously a conversation about 5s. It's a conversation about me.
Yeah.
Which is funny, but and awkward, I feel like. But
this isn't awkward. This is so good.
I guess it gave me a lens and a language to talk about sort of my past experiences. But here's what I'll say about 5s going to 7s in stress. I assumed that we were meant to, as humans, be in a constant state of enjoyment and enthusiasm and excitement.
Yeah.
And that, to a certain extent, we were seeking opportunities to make that happen, whether it was a party or just any event that sort of heightened our experience and got us pumped. Yeah. And all my life, I look back on it and think, like, I was acting. Like, I was never excited, and definitely not as excited as I was coming across.
Right.
I know I'd go to a dance or a party, and I'm thinking internally, if I was being honest with myself, I'm not having fun. I don't want to be here, but this is what humans do.
Yeah.
So smile, act pumped, act like everyone else, do the classic thing, and maybe that will make it real. I mean, you have no way of thinking about this as a younger person. So it's almost manic. It's like,
yeah, you go into this,
I'm having fun. I'm enjoying myself. Party, party, party. And it's like, but not really.
Was this you in college?
College, and it's like what we're talking about is like a really subdued sort of Christianized version of this. But like even in high school, I'm talking mostly high school. First of all, I wasn't like a partier. And this is what's really interesting is like growing up, I would say that or as I got older, like into my 20s, I would always look back at high school and say, oh, I didn't party, quote unquote, because I was like this hyper moral person. And actually, I think it's just like I didn't like parties.
Yeah,
I didn't want to go.
I just didn't.
that is the deep insight. It was this mystery. I'm like, how did my parents raise such a moral kid? I had such a moral compass. And it's like, I just didn't want to go to any parties.
I was just scared.
Yeah, I was scared. I want to be at home. So
That's
I
so
don't
funny.
quite know how that addresses your question, but like I just think
no, I think sevens, they go into like a hyperactive.
Sevens, yeah.
Fives go into this like hyperactive
This
mode.
thing that I believe about sevens, when you watch them and observe them, is that they're genuinely enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
With activity
Yeah.
and stimulation.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
I would enjoy myself the most with lack of activity, lack of stimulation, or a different kind of stimulation. Like I'm stimulated through a song or a book or a thought. And it's not like sevens aren't because they're in the head triad. But
this is the most five thing.
I
just want to be listening and analyzing a song or reading a book by myself.
I don't need my, maybe it's the difference between like my physical body. I don't need my physical body involved in a novel experience. I'm fine. Totally, not even fine. I am at my best sitting in a quiet room. It's crazy to think that a seven or a different type of personality would think that like they would pity me. You know?
Yeah, they like don't understand that you're like, oh no, this is good.
This is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, seven in stress. Like, it's sad when people that know me as a youth pastor, and would assume most people that know the Enneagram and know me assumed when they started reading the Enneagram that I was a seven, because that's the trait and the quality that I manifest easily and the most frequently as a youth pastor.
Well, and they always joke that youth pastors are always sevens.
Yeah. And so
that's unfortunate.
Yeah. And people that know the Enneagram really well, once they hear that I'm a five, have so much sympathy for me.
Yeah.
So
because you're placed in the most crazy place as a five.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess that's where I go in stress. But
can you think of a word or like a phrase or a sentence that you've heard about the five that just made you feel that like super resonated with you, and why maybe, or like what it meant for you?
A phrase, or a sentence. I'll just kind of take where that question takes me in my brain. Is I think of introvert, you know, and this is all part of a deeper journey for me of figuring out truly what an introvert was 4 or 5 years ago. And that was another big aha moment for me. It's affirmation. I mean, that's what I'd say again as in defense of like personality tests or the Enneagram. It's being seen, it's being known, it's being validated. It's feeling less alone.
Yeah.
It's feeling like this is a credible way to exist.
Yeah.
And so there was a book I read called Quiet that was about introversion. It's right here on the desk. Let's see. I forget the woman's Susan Cain, who is a successful lawyer and then spent 6 years studying and writing about introversion. And so the book is called Quiet. It was given to me by my friend Laura, who already had suspicions that this would resonate with me.
That's
And
so sweet.
it just, one of the main takeaways from this book is like, we are a country and a culture that prioritize and value extroverts. She does this great chapter on the history of our country in terms of there was a season or a time before like the Industrial Revolution where we valued quietness. We valued industrious workers who kind of kept their head down and did their hard work. But it was, at least the way she describes it, the rise of the salesman that made charisma and energy the top priority or the top value in our culture. So we really value people that like have a lot of charisma, a lot of energy, the ability to sell you on something.
Yeah.
And she said, which is really kind of haunting to think about, that the Harvard Business School values charismatic B students instead of awkward A students. So I think 5 and introversion kind of goes hand in hand classically.
Yeah.
And I think to read about a 5 and to know that there's some validity in being by yourself and researching or reading, or
I feel like it's just as valid.
It's valid, yeah. Maybe that's another word. So introversion, quiet, that sort of thing, I think really sits well with me.
And that it's not like you're not like alone as being like the only person who feels that way. Like there's
lots of people, and it's
lots
good.
of people, yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, the Enneagram, each number has a sort of set of dark things that the number brings with it that are really important to be aware of.
Yeah.
And those have been really healthy and good for me to know.
What are the 5 dark things?
Oh yeah, the 5. The dark things of the 5.
Yeah.
Avarice, or something you call like greed. So
Yeah.
like 5s are generally hoarders, and it's like exactly what you said earlier about the 1. Like 1s are constantly like cleaning their house, but that's just a metaphor. It's just what they value cleaning and tidying up the most, whether it's their bank account or a system or a political system or whatever. Like they want to tidy things up, and 5s hoard. So I have a friend that identifies as a 5 that says he hoards his emotions, that he doesn't share his emotions with people easily. And that's his way of saying it. I think personally, if I was just being honest, I hoard many, many, many things. Like I hoard my personal time, I hoard money, I hoard resources. I don't like the idea of sharing. And when it tells like a 5 and all these like things where it gives 5s advice on like how to move to integration, it gives a lot of advice on sharing and open hands and giving, and that really makes me nervous.
Because you have a need to. What makes you so nervous about opening up, or like why? What is the need
like
to hoard?
Thinking like theologically, we believe in this idea of a God of abundance, or just the concept of abundance. And I actually think that syncs up with reality. I think it syncs up with sort of lots of different lenses. It syncs up with an abundance of nature, like resources, just in terms of like food and resources in the world, but it also syncs up financially. Like, honestly, there is enough money for everybody if we figured out the right way to dispense the money. I, at my core, somehow don't feel that. Like I can believe it intellectually, but I don't trust abundance. I think there's limited resources for everybody, and limited knowledge, limited love, limited everything. And so giving something away feels so threatening to me. And that is that's what it would say about a 5. And that's what feels true to me. So I don't read that about a 5 like, that doesn't sit.
Yeah.
I'm like, that resonates 100% with me.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That makes
but that's something I should be working on. So any move and step I make to sharing and giving and being available, that's what you're saying. That's what you're saying about empathy.
Yeah.
Like everybody has something that when they do this act comes at a great cost to them, or it's a risk. Yeah. And every number has their own version of that. Mine would be giving up my time or sharing, just sharing in general.
Doing this podcast is you integrating.
Yeah, and it feels good. It's a fun little mild risk. It's a mild risk that has been very fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What has it been like can I ask what it's been like for your marriage since you identified as a 5, or like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talk about the Enneagram in our family. What is it like to have been identified as a 5 in my marriage?
Yeah, I guess also just in your family. Like, how does being a 5 function in your family, and how is like knowing that you're a 5 helped you in your relationships?
I have a daughter that's 12 that identifies as an 8. I have a son that's 14 that also identifies as a 5. So there's some connecting and bonding on that, and also some frustration and impatience that inevitably comes from being with somebody that shares your type. And then, like we said, my wife is a 9, so she's like the most chill, most accepting, most open-minded. So like, it's been so fun. It's not just been the Enneagram, but it's been a whole bunch of different personality tests and revelations about like who I am that Marissa has just been so affirming and eager to explore. So, I mean, we could go throughout my entire family and like our daily rhythms and stuff like that. I guess I would just say, in terms of our marriage, here we are in Whidbey Island. I'm out here for 3 days by myself, and Marissa's not only supportive of this, but celebrates it. Yeah. So she knows that like me getting away and being by myself is very important. Yeah. This to me, and this is true. This might surprise people. Being away by myself for a weekend is the equivalent of some sort of big party. Yeah. Whatever anybody's experiencing when they get pumped up for a party is what I experience when I come out here. And maybe this is another way of saying it too for certain people, whether we're thinking Enneagram or just different types of personalities. Maybe the dread that you'd experience coming out by yourself and being alone for 3 days is the same type of dread I feel about going to a big gathering of people. That is so interesting to think about. Yeah. Yeah, it's complicated. Yeah, because that's what the Enneagram teaches you, though, is that like your ideal day is like being by yourself. 100%. On an island where no one can come get you and you just have all your books. The image, the metaphor almost, I feel like an island is almost a metaphor for me. I'm very captivated by an island. I just love the idea of like being separate and distant and inaccessible. Yeah. That's a very nice feeling to me. Can you give maybe 3 tips of like what you are, like how people can best I guess honor you or like. What a great question. Yeah. Also, I want to stop and just respect who you are and and love and care for you. I don't know. I just want to pause and say one of the things I like about this podcast is that this isn't scripted. Like I had no idea Macy was going to ask me that. Oh yeah, so sorry. We're asking and answering in real time. So I'm gonna engage this question. I think one thing is respect, not even respect, appreciate that not everybody needs the same type of stimulation. Like I have a lot of friends, some that identify as 7, but others also. I think we engage the world in this sense that like a big experience is always a good thing. You know, put that in quotes or whatever, like in italics. A big experience is always a good thing. Well, everybody has their different version of a big experience. Like it seems like it's hard for some people to comprehend that a big experience would be sitting and staring off. That's a big experience. There's so much to think about and so much to just absorb and contemplate. I think what we talk about, like certain people and personalities and authors and writers and thinkers that are 5s. I have to believe that Annie Dillard is in this category. She has to be a 5. Yeah, no, I think she has to be a 5. Yeah. Maybe even a 5-wing 4 to a certain extent. A 5-wing 4, probably. And she's this wonderful author that I feel like is a kindred spirit with me, and I can't read any of her writing without instantly tearing up. Yeah. Because I feel like she gets it. And I guess what people have said, I guess I'll also say 5 with a 4 wing. Yeah. And maybe we'll talk about wings in a different episode. But like theoretically, according to the Enneagram, that you have a wing that's a number that's on either side of your number.
Yeah.
So as a 5, you can be a 5 with a 6 wing or 5 with a 4 wing, and I'm definitely a 5 with a 4 wing, which is this thing of, they would say, like connecting the head and the heart. So Annie Dillard, what she'll do is she will do some sort of deep dive analysis in a 5 sense, an observation about the world that's just like so intricate. And then at the very last second, she'll add a paragraph about the heart. And it just hits you like a gut punch. And it's so perfect to me.
Yeah.
That speaks to me.
I've only read like 2 of her things, and it's really emotional each time.
Good.
Ruben loves her too, which is funny because we're all like in that zone.
In that kind of 4 or 5 zone. I guess I would say that to appreciate that people are stimulated in different ways. I don't need a lot of like what I would classically call like frenetic energy. I don't need lights and sound and people and white noise. I don't know. I don't know what people are searching for when they're searching for that.
Yeah.
I know that in the early days I thought that was what we were supposed to be searching for.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, one tip is to appreciate that people are stimulated in different ways. I would ask somebody to appreciate that I remember what I was going to say about Annie Dillard. She has this novel, and one of the main characters is living by herself and has so many thoughts. I have to imagine like this is Annie Dillard putting herself into this character to a certain extent. And she says she basically spends her days searching for a thought and can't get it. And that really resonates with me. And then she has this great line where she says she kept waiting for the thought, wake up every day, thinking. And as she's going to bed, she was like, the thought hasn't come yet. And it says, until then, she cleared the runway. Meaning like this, like it's this imagery of like this thought is coming. We know it's coming. It's landing. It's on a plane. It's going to be delivered. And we need to make sure we're ready for it.
Wow.
Yeah. That just totally resonates with me. I'm waiting for this big
Brains
giant
are
thought.
So cool.
Yeah. and to a certain extent, I'm trying to create space to clear the runway for that thought.
Wow.
And maybe sometimes you get it, but like I'm hoping it comes,
Yeah.
And so like
the 5s are so in their head.
Yeah.
5s are so in their head.
Yeah. A party would be a not clearing the runway. A party is a distraction from the big thought I'm waiting to get.
And that's why when you can have space, you're like, I can like prepare the way for this big old thought to come.
You said 3 tips. I'll try to do 2 more quick than that.
Oh, it's fine.
Well, yeah.
I like the idea of tips.
Okay.
I also have a few more thoughts on the 5.
Okay. I would say another tip is this idea of 5s like to be valued for their ideas.
Yeah.
So this is something that my wife Marissa and I have talked about, is one of the best ways you can honor me. I hope it's not like placating or humoring.
Yeah.
But it's to say back in detail what I have been saying. That feels like whatever people would experience if they get a big giant hug, like a literal hug. I'm not talking metaphorically. That feels like a hug to me. If you say, "Oh, what I hear you saying is blank, blank, blank," I'm like, "Oh, that can go one of 2 ways." It gives me a chance to clarify, which is a great opportunity for me, or it gives me a chance to be like, "Oh, you heard me," and whether or not you agree with me, you
heard me.
it. Yeah. So that is a gift to a 5.
Yeah.
I think another thing is just give the 5 some space.
Yeah.
Back the frig up.
Yeah.
Give the 5 some room.
They want some space. And when they get their space, they want it to themselves.
Yeah. And I'll say this to anybody that's engaging with a 5. Like, this is the crazy thing that I would encourage people to trust. That, let's say I have some friends of mine that like have been so generous. I've viewed this as I've gotten older as generosity in terms of making space for me in their lives. Like understanding that I need space and they don't get as resentful or frustrated or impatient with that.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is that when you create that space for a person that identifies as a 5, it actually makes them want to spend more time with you.
Yeah.
So the more space you give initially, I think it will come back to you, and you'll be seen.
They'll
as
trust you more.
trustworthy. Yeah.
Well, because I think as I was researching stuff on the 5 and listening to different stories on the 5, the word intrusion kept coming up,
Oh,
and this idea of that 5s, and this is something that I was talking to you about as a funny experience, but like 5s are so often, I don't want to generalize, but this was a story of that. Like 5s are often so in their head that when someone comes into their space, it always feels like an intrusion. Like everything is
100%.
entering their zone, and they don't. Their first reaction is kind of like shock
Yes.
that someone would come and ask them something or would come and interrupt their space. And I wish
so
that you
true.
could have seen your face the other day when I walked in your office and your door wasn't shut. So I was like, oh, he's fine, because if he shuts the door, then it's like leave him be. But I walked in and you were clearly in a headspace. And you looked shocked that I was there, and I was like, oh, "I'm so sorry, bye." Like,
But that's what you're highlighting about the goodness of all of this is like it gave you the lens to see and appreciate that.
yeah, like because it's like you couldn't help it that shocks you. Like, and I was like, "Oh, he was like on a train of thought. Like
But I
he
also
needs
left my
to
door
finish
open.
his train of thought." But you left your door open, so
That's my bad.
your fault.
I'm going to tell a story that I think highlights a 5.
Give us the story.
There's lots of different things, but I mean, I'll just remind people like the 5 is called the observer or the investigator, and I think I'm most comfortable in that role. Like, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I think that's another just kind of nod to what the Enneagram is supposed to do is show us things that we're also supposed to be working on. So although it's a good thing that I like to observe and investigate, it can go awry, and that's in the sense that I'm just not participating in life.
Yeah.
So like, for example, I've got 2 stories. The most recent one was a fall retreat that we did. And so Macy and I work with a youth group at a church, and we had a fall retreat, and we were hosting a dance party, and this is like classic 5 investigator observer. I am like DJing. I don't want to dance with everybody. I'm much
You
happier.
would just rather watch everyone.
Watch everybody, and that sounds kind of creepy to a certain extent, but like I'm just so happy to see everybody having fun.
Yeah.
And I can question, what's this fun all about? You know, like this is so interesting, and this music is making people dance a certain way. You know,
Yeah, I feel like you had a lot of after that you had a lot of thoughts on like different people's like personalities based on what came out during the dance.
So much interesting, and I know certain songs that I know are going to activate people, and that's really fun for me to be able to play. But there was a moment at the end that I was very excited about where I played "Don't Stop Believin'" by Journey. And this is another very 5 thing about me. It's like the most classic 5 is I really enjoy making videos, photography, videography, and then processing my memories afterward. I mean, you can even say the podcast is similar. Like, I'm experiencing it now, but I'll experience it again later when I'm editing
you
it.
love the editing.
Yeah, it helps me process the experience. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Don't Stop Believin' is on. Everybody's flipping out because this is a huge song. It's the finale, and I'm going to get my camera and film this.
Oh.
So I get out into the middle, and I'm starting to film people, and it just was like this mob mentality. People were like, Scott's here. They all surrounded me and started trying to get me to dance, and I had lost my camera, and I just freaked out. I was like, I've got to find my camera. I'm screaming like, let me out, let me out. It's like I'm a grown man. I kind of look back and think like, that's not a 5 moving into integration. Like me sort of living into my 5 is like, yes, it's valid that I like to be a videographer and observe and record this. I should have also been able to be in the experience and dance and had fun with everybody.
I guess.
It's not like I always have to be putting myself in that situation.
Right.
But when it happens,
you shouldn't have to like
I really do believe I'm missing out. Like I'm missing out on a special moment.
Yeah, that dance party was super fun.
Yeah. There's this other little story that I think is just again like a snapshot of a 5, and I
love these 5 stories.
What I like to think of is if there is a 5 listening to this and they resonate, and it's just a nice little fun story.
Yeah.
But it's been fun to think back on stories like this because I've got like 30 of them, and think like, oh, it was introversion, it was a 5, it was this thing with strength finders, it was INFP, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, whatever.
This man's done it all.
I've done it all. And I just remember like having this like heavy quotes party, heavy quotes with my 2 best friends, Ross and Eric. And I had...
You had your friends over?
Yeah, I had meticulously planned this evening that was going to involve a special dinner, certain video games, very many activities that I had planned out. And in the middle, I was perplexed then, and I was perplexed now.
This is the most thoughtful, like, bro gathering.
Totally, and I did this. And they come over, and we're having a decent time. We're good friends. And, like, these sort of, like, classically cool girls give us this call. So this is not... There's no social
how old
media.
are you?
I'm probably a freshman or sophomore in high school.
Oh.
Yeah. So that
this story is so different.
Yeah.
You didn't
what were you
explain
thinking?
that.
How do you now? Do you think it
I
now?
was maybe thinking now.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
you had
yeah,
your friends over to...
Oh, sorry. That's really important.
How long did you play video
freshman,
games?
sophomore year in high school. That's when this story starts. I'm a freshman, sophomore in high school. I have 2 of my best friends over. I've got this whole evening planned. And this group of 4 or 5 girls call that I say, like, again, in heavy quotes again, classically cool.
Wow.
And they say they're at their house and they're in the hot tub and wants to come
Wow.
over. Yeah. And my friends are like, oh, what a great opportunity. We got to go. And I was like, what? I'm like, we got a plan. We got an agenda.
What is this story? I never saw this coming.
And they wanted to go so bad, and yet they knew that I had this plan and this agenda. And they were acting awkward, and I was acting awkward. They obviously wanted to go to this house, to this hot tub, but they also valued me as a friend.
You couldn't see outside of your agenda?
Yeah, and I actually literally crawled up onto my roof and pouted by myself for probably a good 30 minutes. And I know my friends were like, where's Scott? Like, worried about me? And I was just like overwhelmed. And this is what people say about 5s, is that they literally like float up into their heads and mentally detach.
Yeah.
And at the time, like, I didn't have the resources or the insight to say what's happening to me. All I knew was like I felt overwhelmed and I felt crazy for being on my roof. And
I can resonate with that.
And I know like my friends thought I was crazy. They're like, it's a no-brainer to go to the house with the girls in the hot tub. And I was just like, that just seems like so many X factors to me, so many things I can't control. I had a plan. Yeah. I want to be with my friends. And I guess I would just say again as a pitch for the Enneagram, it helped validate that experience for me.
Yeah,
like
and
I can look back on that now and say, I've looked back on that for almost 20 years and said, I'm a crazy person. And I'm like, no, it's not that. I'm not a huge fan of big parties. That's all. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Wow, that's such a interesting story. I can resonate with the pouting thing. That might be your 4-wing too.
I have a 4-wing that manifests itself in pouting sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I have to admit that like I kind of wanted my friends to come find me. You know?
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
Or maybe you did.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right,
man.
so you're going to say some things about 5s that you've noticed over the last week?
I just think I think 5s are really cool. I think 5s are really interesting. I know Scott really well, and then I know Ruben really well, and they're both 5-wing 4s, which are, like Scott was saying, this like fun kind of. They have more tendencies towards their emotional side, which is kind of this fun aspect to them. And I'm a 4, I think wing 5, so I have levels of understanding, I guess, of the 5. But 5s have a way of like being really good at helping you make a decision. Like I would say, like if you need to make a decision, a 5 is going to be really helpful because they're going to like want to look at something from all sides and examine it, and like they'll probably think about it more than you thought about it, I would say. And like that's something that can be really helpful. I would also say that like,
can I stop and say something about that?
Yeah.
If that's true, which I think it is, and you know a 5, I guess I'm thinking for somebody that knows a 5 in their life.
Yeah.
A true insight is not going to be something that you've already thought about.
Right. No, it won't.
So that's the thing about 5s and my relationship. First of all, it's not like every 5's idea is necessarily going to be a good idea. But what they will often do is, and I know I am able to do this, is look at things from about 10 different angles that you haven't considered yet. And initially it would feel threatening.
Yeah. Oh,
So
for
it's
sure.
not going to be like, oh, what a great idea this 5 came up with. It's
Yeah.
going to be like, what? I was never even thinking of it like that. And that's typically what I experience is like, that's nonsense. Let's get back to the real issue. And it's like, you might be missing this. You might be missing it.
I think going off of that, so when you like bring up something to a 5, or I don't know, maybe just you, but there's other people, other 5s in my life, they'll often like, they're very comfortable throwing out a bunch of ideas and just letting them all be out there because they're not threatened by ideas, if that makes sense.
That's a great way of saying it. I think most 5s would resonate with that.
And so I think oftentimes people can get almost scared by that. But that's like I think that's what makes 5s really fun to go and talk to, is because they're like kind of open to anything. They'll consider anything, which is very cool and refreshing. Like they're very open-minded, I would say. And it's because they're always observing and they're always kind of trying to understand. They're seeking to understand. And so I think that they're sometimes described as being more like slow and methodical because they may not immediately have the answer, but they'll probably think about it more than anyone else will.
Richard Rohr has here's a resource. Maybe we'll post some resources.
Yeah.
Richard Rohr is a guy that's written a book on the Enneagram, and he's got some just YouTube Richard Rohr Enneagram.
Yeah,
and he's got
it's
some
good
great
stuff.
presentations. And he has this great thing. First of all, we said earlier the 6 is like a deer. He says like the barn owl is the 5 who's like up in the corner. It sounds super creepy. Like
I don't think it sounds creepy.
The owl up in the corner watching everything,
Yeah.
Which is like kind of like voyeuristic or something like that. But anyways, he says that like the 5's go-to phrase is interesting. Like
Yeah,
you could say
for
something,
sure.
and I think that's one of the things I notice in my life is like interesting is a non-committal statement. It's not like yes, I agree, or no, that's dumb. It's like everything is interesting, and it's a non-committal phrase because it literally is interesting.
Yeah.
But I can tell like somebody will say something to me that's like sort of politically obvious.
Yeah.
This happened in the news. Can you believe? Ba 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 ba. Anger, anger, anger. And I'll be like, interesting. What I'm saying is, I'm not going to trust your vantage point.
Yeah.
I'll have to go read a few more articles. I'll have to get a few more opinions.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that quite yet.
Yeah.
And I can tell people are like, but it's so obviously offensive, And I'm like, I just can't comment on that yet,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think we could all learn from that. Oh, okay. I had a thing to say about 5s. 5s are, if you get them talking about something they care about, you can't shut them up. And that is, and I mean, I understand that. And
true.
it's just so funny. I think part of it is, they get so pumped about, okay, I finally get to talk about this thing. And they've read all the books on it and they've like studied all the information and they've thought through it all. So they have so much to actually say, and what they have to say like is really good. It just sometimes is a lot at once. But I also think that 5s, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a big fear of being misunderstood, or that they're going to, people are going to misinterpret their words and make like, if you say something, someone's then going to go make a generalization what you said, and you're like, no, that's not what I said it in this nuanced way on purpose. Like 5s can be extremely nuanced, and yeah, like Reuben will be so nuanced in his words, and like I'm constantly having to correct a sentence to like fit all the correct nuances to be what I meant to say. But it's helpful. They help us to have better like tools of communicating our own knowledge.
That's why I said one of the best ways you can love a 5 is to say back what they've said.
Yeah, yeah.
Say that you've gotten it.
Yeah.
Or to at least give them a chance to clarify.
Yeah, yeah. I think I as a person who loves information, I love 5s because they'll just chat about something for so long and they know so much, and I just want to sit and be like, teach me this thing.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
I'll say this for me personally. Like, I don't mind saying that, like, I've been going to counseling for about a year now, and the Enneagram has synced up well with that. And what I would say about the Enneagram that I've said in counseling, and I've said this about other personality tests too, is like it's like a microscope. This is my metaphor. To everybody, it doesn't have to fit everybody.
Yeah.
A microscope to view yourself through. So the Enneagram, like Macy has said over and over again, is a tool. So the tool, in this sense, is a microscope.
Yeah.
And you can look at yourself. Now, the really trippy thing for me, and I think this would resonate for a lot of people, it's not just about fives. Any number in terms of like a personality test or an Enneagram is, I could see myself through the Enneagram and know that this is true, and yet not know necessarily how to act that way in the world because I've been trying to act a different way. So basically, I've been trying to act like a 7 my whole life, and I'm not. I've been feeling more comfortable being a 5, but I wouldn't say that. First of all, I knew that was a valid way to exist in the world, and 2, like I'm not experienced being it.
Yeah.
So like I'm trying
You're
to
still
let
like trying to let yourself be that.
Yeah. And I know that like people want me to behave as a 7. They're more familiar with me behaving as a 7. And they don't, and this is again like in terms of like the Enneagram as a tool for empathy, people that don't understand that part of me don't understand the tragic cost, basically.
Yeah, like it's kind of a big sacrifice to you that you have been put in so many like social situations and like needing to be so exposed. Wow, that's interesting to think about.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I guess in terms of our podcast, like we could keep going. You know, like this is scratching the surface. That's everything we've talked about so far. Playlists, Age and Wisdom, 21 Pilots. You know, I think this is just the beginning of our discussion on Enneagram. Like, this is just scratching the surface of 5.
Yeah, there's so much.
Scratch the surface of 4. You know.
Yeah, because 5s are considered the most complex.
Yeah.
Can I just say a few like suggestions for people, like books or podcast recommendations?
Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay, so if this intrigued you at all, which I hope it did, and maybe you know a 5 and you're like, oh, this gave me understanding to understand my 5 in my life. That's cool. But I would have a few suggestions. So I've already said it, The Sacred Enneagram by Chris Hewart, I believe. I will hopefully check that out, make sure it's right. And then
we'll post these things.
I
think we say that and then we don't, but maybe we'll try it, actually.
You got to actually do it. Okay. The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Don Richard Rizzo and Russ Hudson. This is, as Scott said, kind of like the Bible of the Enneagram.
Wisdom of the Enneagram. You can only get a physical copy. It's not like you can't do Kindle or iBooks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott graciously lent to me this week, and I read a lot of it. The Enneagram, A Christian Perspective, is Richard Rohr's book, and I haven't actually read it, but I've read snippets of it, and I've heard really good things about it. Richard Rohr's a really cool thinker. Whether or not you're a Christian, I think that this book would be helpful for you in the Enneagram. Podcasts, I recently discovered this podcast called The Enneagram for Idiots, and I love it. I'm kind of obsessed with it already. It's I think they're probably in their 30s, just besties who goof around and talk about the Enneagram. A 4 and an 8. It's so fun. And talk about the Enneagram. But they have a really deep understanding of it, but then they use it in fun, goofy ways. So it's a banter podcast. I think that's what they call it.
That's a great way. They call it that?
A banter podcast, which I think we're not banter per se. We're a conversation podcast.
Man, I want to dabble in the banter though.
Does banter imply like us just going? I don't even know what that necessarily implies.
I feel like it puts like the agenda on hold, really, kind of, and just like riffing.
Like, let's just riff. Let's go. Like going. I'm not the best.
I feel like we each episode we've had somewhat of an agenda, which isn't bad. I'm kind of proud of that. But at the same time,
I think they kind of have an agenda, but
they have a theme. But I feel like they riff.
Yeah, we got to riff more. I guess I'm not gonna riff.
We'll experiment with it.
Oh, okay. And then the Liturgist podcast has a 2-hour long podcast, which is kind of a long podcast, but it will go over all the types. And it's they interview Ian Cron and I forget the lady's name. Oh, it
boy,
makes me
sexist.
terrible.
You remember the white man?
Well, he has a podcast too.
He has a podcast called Typology.
Which would you suggest Typology?
What an interesting question. I'll be on the record of not suggesting. I don't think I do.
I've only
it's
listened
fine,
to
but
it
I'm
like
not,
twice, but I haven't been
about it.
enthusiastic about it. But the Liturgist one's pretty good. That's a good resource. And then online would be good. And then I guess also just if you know people who care about it, ask them what it's like. I think that's the best resource is asking your friends what
great
it's like.
advice.
And I mean, in general, it's helped me. But I also just think like, let's ask the people we care about how we can best care about them.
Great advice, regardless of if you're studying the Enneagram.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just learning. I'm just starting to dabble into that. And it's challenged me, but it's been good for me. Those are my thoughts.
I would also recommend this book. It's called Quiet.
Is this about the Enneagram?
Yeah. Well, it's not about the Enneagram. It's just a book for introverts. And it's like, if you feel like you're an introvert and really want to read, in my experience, the definitive book on introversion, this book called Quiet by Susan Cain is the book. And if you're a person that is constantly interacting with an introvert and confused by it, this would really help you.
Yeah.
So I think 5 and introversion kind of go hand in hand. I'm sure, in terms of like boxing people, and I'm sure there has to be some extroverted introverts. Extroverted 5s is what I mean.
Is that the wrap up, or we? I just like really went on a tangent about the recommendations. I just don't want to. I just want to make sure that everyone has like next steps and they're like they know what they are because they've been helpful for me and you.
I think this is recommendations Enneagram edition.
Yeah. Also, could we have people? I don't know if you want to keep this in there or not, but if you are listening to this podcast and you happen to know what number you are and you want to share a fun story of your number, please email it to nosmallthingpodcast@gmail.com.
That's it.
That would be so fun. We would love to read those and, as we just said, get to know the numbers better.
If you don't want to do that, go ahead and write it in the comments of Instagram. Send it any way you want.
Oh, yeah, any way you want.
Yeah.
Also, it doesn't have to be a fun story. It could be just a story.
Dark story.
A dark story. Honestly, let's be vulnerable. Let's open up.
5s are drawn to the dark and the forbidden.
And 4s are also drawn to the vulnerable and the dark and the tragic.
So
bring it on.
I don't know. Like honestly, in terms of the Enneagram, like personal stories really resonate the most. Like the story about me and my friends in the hot tub and all that. Like that is a 5 story. That's a 5 story.
Right. A 7 would experience that night differently. And they would be like, oh, of course, let's go.
Perfect.
And then they'd be at the hot tubs and they'd be like, what's next?
Yeah, exactly.
What can we do next?
7s, come on.
I don't know what I would do. I probably would say no.
I think it's fun to hear these stories. It's fun to put like flesh and bones to these concepts. You know? So
put them out there.
Even if not even, especially if you're just a classic friend, a friend of ours. You know who you are. Listen to this podcast.
Just a classic
Just a good old friend. Why not send a story?
Please send stories.
Just send it to our email.
Send
no small
it.
Thing. Not
will your care friends enjoy that?
Oh my gosh. If they're listening to this, they'll laugh so hard at that. Not a text. Don't send Macy a text or me a text. Put it on our official thing. Put it on our Instagram or put it on our email. I don't know.
Also, don't 5s. This is another 5 thing. Don't call a 5.
Don't call me.
Don't
Please
call
don't
a
call 5. Me about any of this.
That's a number 1 intrusion of a 5.
That's so good. Don't call me. I'll throw my phone across
If I'm going to call you, I have to text. Is it okay if I call?
That's so nice, though, that you acknowledge that. Yeah. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. I think I always end with some like, we love you. You guys are beautiful humans. Woo! Don't ever forget it. We hope that you
all
enjoy.
All you numbers, 1 through 9.
Yeah, 1 through, last final note.
Yeah.
The Enneagram helps us to realize like how good and different we are. Like how good it is for us to all be so different, and like how we can relate to people so uniquely and differently, and like diversity is what like unifies us.
So good.
So
So
final
well
thoughts.
said. Final thought.
We love the Enneagram.
Yeah. Love the Enneagram. Thank you for listening.
Peace out. I
We've
hope
had a
you
lot of fun.
have a good day.
Have a good day. Good evening. Macy, again, has now put her microphone down.